All right, guys, welcome back here on Southeastern 14 with Max Barr. It's never a good sign whenever we're laughing as the video starts because we're both. We come in to record this, and the first thing I hear Max saying is, "Oh God, like what?" It's like, what am I gonna do here? Like, who am I picking? The pressure is on. Like Max, before we even hit the record button, this guy is sweating this one, trying to figure out who we're gonna go with in this game. But we'll get to that in a second. But first, let's tell you about Bet Online. Playoff time, of course. Usual suspects heading to Vegas for the championship this weekend. Our partner, Bet Online, your number one source for football odds, stats, trends, and lines. Everything from point spreads to hundreds of bets on everything from the coin toss to the color of the Gatorade. Bet Online, number one source for your championship wagering. Head over there today, betonline.ag. Get in on all the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. All right, now let's get into it. We don't have a choice. The Auburn Tigers are heading to Gainesville to play the Florida Gators, who are the team that had a midweek off. Always nice to have in this league. Meanwhile, Auburn's coming off of the thrashing of the Alabama Crimson Tide in the rivalry rematch on Wednesday. And this game will take place at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on the SEC Network. Max, Auburn could have asked for a much better performance against the Tide. They came out, Jalen Williams, 26 points, Jani Broom, 24. Donaldson stepped up, had a big game. Baker Mazar off the bench as usual, gives them some big minutes. The Auburn did a lot of things well. In a game like that, to only have 5 turnovers, Auburn just, did what Auburn has been able to do, and that is kind of just impose their will on teams. And they did that to Alabama. We all know about the free throw stuff. Yes, Auburn did make 40 of 50 free throws in that game. Don't think that's going to be the case here. I think this will be a game that's hopefully, Max, I think, play a little bit more free flowing. Not sure we'll get either team maybe getting to the line that much in this one, but we'll find out because Florida's a team that has struggled at times defensively. And my guess is Auburn will try the same mode of attack here where they'll limit how many threes they take, which has been working to a certain extent, especially on the road. Meanwhile, Florida, they may have some issues, defensively, but offensively, they do a lot of good things. And remember, they are coming off a road loss at Texas A&M, where they only scored 66 in that one against the Aggies. But interesting setup here for this game, and should be a close one no matter who we decide to pick in this one.
This is probably, for me, game of the day on Saturday, just because of hey, just look at some of these Florida games, like in these big primetime Florida games, Kentucky overtime, Georgia overtime, 1-point game against A&M. They put up Mississippi puts up 103 on them. Either way you spin it, this anytime you tune in to watch a Florida game, it's going to be fun to watch. But as far as like how these teams break down against each other, it's no question with the Auburn defense. I mean, they're going to, besides free throw rate and maybe defensive rebounding, they're going to be the best team in the SEC in pretty much every defensive category: 3-point percentage, 2-point percentage, block rate, turnover rate, you name it. The defense has been rock solid for Auburn. And we've seen Florida be a great offensive team in stretches and really be able to put up some points. Now they went cold against Texas A&M in the second half, but still they've got the guards that we like. So I think, as good as this Auburn defense is, they're traveling on the road after a big emotional game. I think Florida will have some offensive rebounds, and Clayton will make some threes. I feel like the Florida offense will hold their own here. The thing that I think the game will kind of be more decided on is when Florida's on defense and Auburn's on offense, because the Florida defense, as you noted, it has not been consistent. They don't force turnovers. They do not guard the paint that very well, which is it's hard for me to wrap my head around because of how physically imposing they are on the boards. They do not really protect the rim all that well. So that is not a good thing going against Auburn. We just saw what Jalen Williams and Jani Broom did to the Alabama front court. So I see paths for both teams. I think Florida can really hit the offensive boards and probably hit a few of those kick out threes that get the crowd into it and kill an Auburn run. But then when Auburn's on offense, I can see them, just doing the same thing they did to Alabama and just forcing it into Williams and Broom. I think this is going to be a really high-scoring game that there's not going to be much separated. Now, if this was at Neville, it would be a whole different conversation. But Florida's been really good at home, Blake.
Yeah, that's why I think, you look at again how Florida plays offensively, and you just look at the numbers in some of these games, like you were kind of pointing out. I mean, they lost the Kentucky game, but they scored 85 in that one, scored 90 against Arkansas, only scored 79 against Mississippi State, which I think if you're Auburn, like you're trying to kind of lean on that too. The defensive side here, we keep saying, I mean, Auburn's a top 5 defensive team in the country now. So
Right.
that's probably the kind of game, maybe we see if it plays out to that extent. But then, of course, they scored 102 against Georgia in overtime at home. So, yeah, I mean, like a lot of teams in the SEC, they seem to play better at home. And, the tempo, yes, both teams are going to want to get up and down the floor here. Very free-flowing type game, hopefully. And, again, it's just we've talked about A&M, kind of being the team that everyone points out offensive rebounding-wise, but look at Florida. I mean, they are just doing so many similar things and getting second chance opportunities, and Auburn's given up some of those. So I think that is definitely an area, if you're Todd Golden, there's no doubt, like you were hammering home that possibility here that, hey, we need all of our guys trying to rebound and get those second chance opportunities, because you're not going to get a lot of great looks against Auburn if they play defense the way that they usually do. And so, yeah, like there's a lot of things about this matchup that you could look at. I mean, as usual, I'm going to say the same thing. Like everything has to go through Broome here, and I think Auburn's figured that out. Like they're not as reliant on the three. And this is still an Auburn team, though, when you look at what they've done away from home. Other than the Ole Miss game, they've certainly had their issues. Again, going to Alabama, going to Mississippi State, and you just kind of look at some of the statistical trends. They're just Florida is a good offensive team, but man, Auburn is so hard to kind of get good shots against. And we saw that for Alabama, right? Like how many great shots did Alabama get? They made some tough shots, and sure, they hit a couple of threes, but some of those were contested threes and all of that just to get to that 81-point mark. And remember, they still lost by 18 in that game. So, yeah, this is one where I think the midweek off is important here, because I did find the stat, Max, we had been kind of bantering about, and I was like, I don't think anyone's lost in the midweek, but one team is lost, but we're going to actually disqualify them because Vanderbilt lost after having the midweek off, and they hosted Tennessee in the next game. So that's a little bit different. Vanderbilt's the 13th team in the SEC right now. So I think we can maybe throw that one to the side a little bit. So Florida's coming off a game where you kind of saw some of the flaws against Texas A&M. We saw what A&M was able to do. They got to the free throw line 24 times in that game. Auburn's going to try to do similar things. As we said, as long as they don't get happy shooting the three, Auburn's going to do the same thing they did against Alabama. That would be my guess. Why would you not? Because you saw how well that it worked. And if you look at some of the other things for Florida in that game, the turnovers, like those are things too that you can't afford to have those kind of turnovers against Auburn, because you don't want to give them any second chance opportunities there. So now we get to our picks. And again, I just think the style of this game is going to be a lot of fun. As you said, I think it's one that, you sort of look at just the overall setup here. And you know me, when I make my picks, it's all about the spot, right? And it's about this, who'd you play before? How are things set up before?
Oh, don't do this.
We have seen this, Max, time and time again
Don't
in
do
the
this.
SEC. We've seen this time and time again. You know where I'm going here.
Yeah, I know where I'm going.
I know, and you're concerned because I think we're going to pick the same thing, and that's where the concern comes in. Auburn's coming off the emotional high of the Alabama game. They just blew out the Crimson Tide. And now they got to go on the road to play a well-rested Florida Gators team who can really do some things inside that not a lot of teams can in the SEC from just an offensive rebounding perspective. Even if Florida doesn't get those great shots against Auburn, we've seen that their ability to get these second chance opportunities can be the difference in some of these games. I just, I said Alabama's in a tough spot going to Auburn. I think Auburn's in a tough spot going to Florida, because let's also keep this in mind, okay? What's at stake here? I said it in some of the other ones. There's a lot at stake for Florida. They need this win for their NCAA tournament resume more than anything right now. It was great to get the Kentucky one on the road. It was great to get the Mississippi State one at home. Auburn's a top 5 team in the net, right? Like you look at all the things that this would do for you to beat Auburn at home. the mentor versus the protege here. Like we got Todd Golden, Bruce Pearl, all the the storylines, connection there, former assistant, all those things. But I just think this sets up decent for the Gators, and because they're the home team in this one, I'm doing it, Max. I'm gonna pick the Gators in this matchup.
I don't blame you. I'm looking at a few things here, Blake. I'm looking at a few things, and you touched on a few of them. You mentioned that other than the Ole Miss game, that Auburn has struggled on the road. But I would argue they even struggled in that game. They were down by 12 with
That's
2
true.
minutes
That's a good
left in
point.
the
Yeah,
first half.
just had a great second half.
They
Yeah,
had a great second half and really took it to Ole Miss. But man, in that first half, they were down double digits. Looked like they were headed to a loss. So they really have not put together many good road games at all this year. And now you're coming off of what I would confidently say is the most emotional win of the entire season for this team. So there's that angle. Also, what I like is how this is a Florida team that has not played at home since January 27th. The last time this Florida fans watched this team play was 2 weeks ago in an overtime thriller win. This place is going to be sold out and going ballistic for this game. So there's another factor. Now my last factor that I'm pretty confident in. This is a Florida team that is the only team the whole year that has made Chris Jans play Jimmy Bell and Tolu Smith at the same time. The only time the entire year that Chris Jans has had to do that because of how physically imposing this Florida front court is. And I think that is just similar to how we say Tennessee hates running into these slow teams. Auburn does not want to run into a team that's going to be able to match the physicality of Broome and Williams and Cardwell. That's exactly what this Florida team can do. You're going to get a short, probably 4-point underdog at home here. Give me Florida.
I mean, we've seen the success too of the unranked team against as we said, that's just this year in college basketball. I'm not even talking the SEC. Like it's been a pretty good bet to bank on the home team in this kind of matchup, especially like I said, for a Florida team that knows that this is a very important game. Because after this, right, you get LSU, Georgia, and if you look at the rest of Florida's schedule, here's what's interesting to consider. They play Auburn here. Here are the teams still left on their schedule. LSU at home, not going to do anything for your resume. At Georgia, probably not going to do much for your resume. Home against Vanderbilt, not going to do anything for your resume. Home against Missouri, not going to do anything for your resume. Like at South Carolina, yes. Home against Alabama, yes. At Vanderbilt, no. Realistically, Florida has 4 opportunities left to do something resume-wise that's going to help them, not hurt them, right? Because even playing some of the games, in the net's going to drop you a little bit. And if you were to lose one of these games, let's say you go lose at Georgia, well, that's not good because most places have them as a what as of today? Probably, I don't know. Let me try to pull it up real quickly here. Because again,
You're checking though, Blake. You said they have 4 opportunities, right?
Yeah.
That's Auburn, Alabama, South Carolina, and then Alabama again. Only 2 of those are at home. 2 of those are on the road.
Yeah.
So
this is it.
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah, so I know, trust me, everyone. I know everyone picks apart Lenardi and all that. But let me just tell you, the last one update there, Florida was one of the last 4 teams in the tournament. And so it's a huge game, a lot at stake for the Gators. And remember what we said. I've been the guy saying I can't pick Florida until they start winning big games. Well, guess what's happened? They've started to win big games. And so now that they have, that gives me a little more confidence in thinking maybe they can do that here in a week off spot, playing a team that's coming off of a huge emotional game on Wednesday. So that's kind of been the theme. We'll see if it continues in this one. If not, guess what? At least Auburn fans can be happy knowing that the Southeastern 14 Kiss of Death is back. We picked you all correctly in the midweek. Let's see if maybe we do it in the opposite way for this one. So anyways, all right, guys, we appreciate you as always. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button as well. Check out everything else on the channel. We previewed all the other games and other videos. You can find those here for our Saturday selections on those. But again, we appreciate you watching here at Southeastern 14. We'll talk to you again here soon.